has to walk around with security because he's had threats against his life. Again, from the left, it's certainly not the conservatives threatening him. So that's just another example of there is a fear in the air, certainly by conservatives when you get death threats.
You were there, Hal. What was it like? What's your what sort of emotions do you feel as you think about it?
It was amazing. I'm so glad that I went. I almost didn't go. I kind of decided to go last minute, and because it was just going to be so many people, right, and security and the whole thing. But it was certainly worth going. And as I was there with some friends, we were talking about. I said, I can't think of any other funeral in my lifetime that compares to this. I mean, you have, I would assume around 50 or 60,000 people inside the arena, and then you had people on an overflow outside. It was really amazing to see, and people were there to just remember Charlie Kirk. I met Charlie in 2015 when he was 21 years old, so I'd been friends with him for about 10 years. And so it was really good to see that turnout and to see the speakers come up and talk about different stories and their experiences with Charlie, and to see how many lives he really touched. So it was truly remarkable.
Was there also a hint of it being almost? There was a hint of a rally about it a little bit as well. I mean, talk to us about the politics of it, because it was clearly remembering a man that many people felt very very fond towards, but there's a feel of a political rally too. Is that fair?
You have politicians. Some of the politicians were speaking, right? So you obviously had President Trump speak. You had Secretary Marco Rubio speak, who was clearly a politician previously. And Charlie's life revolved around both Christianity and politics. So it makes sense that there would be politics there. There were a lot of politicians there in general, and so yes, I mean there was certainly politics involved, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was overtly political. It was only political in reference to kind of his life because he did have a political life.
Are we seeing a sort of resurgence, a rise, and almost a religious revolution in politics? Because Charlie Kirk was clearly, I mean, obviously a huge Christian, and that's a major part of his life. But it strikes us watching from afar that religion and politics are getting ever more closely intertwined. Actually, do you find that?
That was certainly the mood there at the arena. There were Christian songs at the beginning. There were discussions around Christianity all throughout the service. I would say that and Charlie was talked about it openly on college campuses, and that was his inspiration. And so it certainly was and there were a lot of you could see in the crowd high school and college age kids that were there. It certainly seems to be the case for, Gen Z. It certainly seems to be kind of more becoming more religious than the previous millennial generation.
Um, Hal, you're a Republican, and you know how the politics of the states works. Are you worried that in the wake of this very sad death, we're seeing more and more intolerance on both sides? But are you worried about this sort of new McCarthyism, this idea that if you don't celebrate Charlie Kirk, if you don't say the right things about him at the right time, maybe the state will be coming after you?
Well, I haven't seen that. You when you say if you don't say things about him, that wasn't the case. What happened here, as far as what I've seen, is when people went on their social media pages and openly celebrated his assassination. You know what? They can do that. They have the perfect right to do that. No government is going to come after them for doing that. But their employer certainly doesn't have to keep them employed. They can certainly say, you know what, that doesn't represent the values of this company. We're a private company. We're not going to have you out online celebrating an assassination. And the obvious one that you talk about, there are people they talk about is Jimmy Kimmel, the late night comedian. And they, for some reason, are blaming President Trump for that. I haven't seen that President Trump did anything on that. Jimmy Kimmel made some comments that were simply false. Okay, and he's on broadcast television, right? So people need to understand there's a difference between cable and broadcast. Broadcast is an open airways; it's owned by the federal government. So they're not allowed to say things that are false on broadcast network. and he refused his employer's demand to retract it and apologize. He said, "I'm not going to do it." So they had every right with it. He had low ratings. He was losing money. And so they had every right to suspend him. And it's not the first time. This people have been suspended many times for saying things on broadcast television as well as cable, but certainly on broadcast. So I'm not seeing the government. You're saying the government coming after people. I don't think that's the case.
I think the argument is it's the fear of the government. This idea that the government, people are saying that people's social media being read when you're coming to America. The talk out of the offices of Jimmy Kimmel was that they were concerned about Trump's reaction, and that led to the suspension. The idea that Trump said at this funeral, "I hate my opponents. I don't want the best of them." He was making a joke really about Charlie Kirk's widow, talking about forgiving him. It was a perfectly reasonable joke to make. But there's a sort of sense for people watching that he also means it. He also means he's coming after you.
Well, look, he hasn't gone after anybody. So if we want to talk about who's been gone after, it was President Trump. I mean, it's amazing that people talk about the government coming after you. My gosh, he was indicted 3 times. They tried to put him in jail. They banned him from all social media. I mean, you talk about Jimmy Kimmel was booted off ABC. Donald Trump, when he wasn't president anymore, was kicked off of Twitter. He was kicked off of Facebook. He was deplatformed, and yet they're now saying, "Oh, President Trump's the one doing things." It's just that's not what happened. And so, uh, you know, that's again the left kind of projecting actually what they did and saying that this is President Trump now doing it. And I just haven't seen it. Yes, President Trump did make a joke about it. And by the way, that was the most amazing aspect of the evening, in my opinion, was when Erica Kirk, his widow, stood up there and said that she forgave the shooter. It was an amazing moment.
And Elon Musk was there, and there was a handshake between Trump and Musk. Maybe was that a moment of forgiveness? Was that a moment of something? Do you think?
So I did not see the handshake, but Elon was about 6 rows in front of me, so I did see him come in. And let me just say, a perfect example. He has to have a massive security detail, right? I don't know how many people he has in total. I've heard it's over 25. But there were at least 6 standing behind him at this event. And so he has to walk around with security because he's had threats against his life, again, from the left. It's certainly not the conservatives threatening him. So that's just another example of there is a fear in the air. Certainly by conservatives when you get death threats, and as was stated at the memorial service, Charlie was getting constant death threats, and yet still continue to go out there.
Just finally, you might not know about this, Hal, but I'm interested. Trump said a thing. Yesterday. Tomorrow we're going to have one of the biggest medical announcements in the history of our country. I think we found the answer to autism.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's tempting to raise a it's tempting to raise a skeptical eyebrow here, Hal. I don't know. What do you make of this?
It is going to be interesting. He did talk about that. He gave it probably 2-3 minutes of his speech was talking about that, and it will be interesting. I think it was we're suspecting it's about autism. I don't know that he specifically said autism. I don't recall that, but that's certainly what people think, is that it may relate to autism, and that there's that they've maybe found. I don't know if they found potentially what's causing it, or some sort of solution to it, but we will find out tomorrow.
We will find out indeed. Hal, I know you've had a really busy day and an emotional day, and it's good that you're remembering your friend Charlie Kirk and talking to us about him today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.